Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez. I'm coming at you today with OMI is my homie, episode 49, with my co-host Crypto Rain and Dr. Stuff. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. Commenting, liking, subscribing is a free way to help support the channel, and you can feel free to ask us anything here. We have a bit to go over. Is that me? We're good. How are y'all doing today? How's your week been since the last 7 days have occurred?
Amazing. Life's good. Like, some people are very worried because crypto's way down. And a lot of this 4-year cycle is just like this happens. It's just waiting. You're like looking day to day, you're just going to wreck your nerves. This isn't the time to sell. The only question I asked during this time is like, is it time to buy more? Can I buy more? And then I'm just patiently waiting. Like, the right things are setting up that crypto is going to go massive, like even bigger than I anticipated. There are things are coming up that are like, this is really going to blow way up to the upside. And that's good. When? We'll have to find out. Could be a couple months, could be 6 months, could be early next year. But the right things are setting up that massive amounts of money are going to come into the ecosystem. Massive institutional buying of crypto and setting up the rails for financial systems run on crypto. Like, everything is lining up super bullish. And I remember this back in like 2020, like all of a sudden some billionaires like Elon Musk were buying Bitcoin and some other really big billionaires buying Bitcoin. And the FUD was high and Bitcoin's price was sitting at 6,000 and just people couldn't see it. I was like, man, what's lining up here is going to be crazy. We're going to have another rally. It might be late 2020, it might be 2021, but everything's lining up for this to go huge. Oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin's going to $800, blah, blah, blah. Right. Well, never did go to $800, and it had already gone to $3,800 and was on its way up. And sure enough, Bitcoin went to 65 and then later 70,000.
Yeah, I mean, the week overall for me is okay week. It's okay. Things are, yeah. Overall good, but I'm with Rain in that, like, there's a lot of panic still. But it was interesting. At work today, there was two people. One person was like asking me about the Trump coin that kind of got brought up, and like the ethics behind, should the, president-elect, because I think he's the president-elect at the time, be launching a meme coin, and what does that do? What does it say about crypto? And then as I was leaving, actually, another guy, he had retired, and then he came back and is working again. And as I was leaving and stuff, because I hadn't seen him in a while, and he actually used to be like one of my bosses, and now I'm one of his bosses. But anyways, so like he was like, hey man, I know that you're in this crypto stuff. I really I have a lot of questions. Like, there's some things that like I want to know, and I know that he's big into investing. And it's interesting to me because I think that there's two people here, right? Like, two kinds of people. There's the people who are panicking and they're just like, oh man, like everything is dropping. I'm freaking out. And then there's people who are like, I feel like things are way down and I've looked at cycles before. I haven't really gotten into it, but like this seems like the right time to be buying, right? And jumping in at these times, right? And I guess for me, it's, who do you want to be? Like, do you want to be the person, like, where's the risk at, right? Like, because then I had some of the people who are now kind of talking crap on crypto. They were asking me how to buy crypto when Bitcoin was at $108,000, right? And then it goes to 75, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't. It was a scam," And I was just like, I don't know how to teach you guys, right? Like, I don't know how to teach you, but I'm with Rain in that, like, I do believe that there are a lot of things lining up. I think that these tariff wars overall are going to improve the economy in the longer term. But in the shorter term, it might cause the Fed to drop interest rates, which will cause more liquidity to be in the markets, which is a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. That's when you get a lot of price action, when there's a lot of liquidity in the markets. So we'll see if they start dropping interest rates or how they feel about that. But I think longer term, we're going to see a drop in interest rates combined with like a stronger economy and then combined again with more clarity in the crypto space. And actually, one of the things, Dr. Dr. Profit sent me this thing about Hester Peirce. She had tweeted it out, kind of talking about the SEC and their stance on crypto. So like I haven't gotten a chance to read that yet, but I'm gonna read everything that she's saying and kind of looking at that, and then maybe kind of do like a breakdown as to like what kind of clarity this provides or the direction it's headed with that statement that came from the SEC.
So there's a couple things that are noteworthy that are worth to mention here over the last week, and we'll start, I guess, a few days after we had talked last. Treasury Secretary Bessent says that Wall Street has grown wealthier for the next 4 decades. So for the next 4 years, it's Main Street's turn. And does that mean that Trump's presidency is going to be anti-Wall Street? Does that mean it's going to be anti people that are just large investors? Or is it, how do you guys go and interpret that as like, okay, well, if Wall Street has a bunch of Bitcoin ETFs and soon to be NFT ETFs, how's that going to affect our bags in crypto?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff Trump is doing is really going to benefit the middle class, and it's going to be huge. Like, so tariffs, like at the end of the day, people are concerned. They're like, oh my gosh, tariffs are just a tax. And they're not wrong. They're a tax on imported goods. Now, a lot of this is just reciprocal. If you ever go to like these foreign countries and you wonder why you can buy no American products there, it's because they tariff the hell out of America sending goods to them, but then they want no tariffs coming back to America. Well, yeah, that doesn't sound very fair. And there are reasons why like they did favorable stuff. Like after the devastation of World War II, the US is like, look, we're exporting lots of goods to you and we'll allow you some tariffs to rebuild them, and you guys are buying our stuff anyway because all your factories have been devastated. So they allowed one-sided tariffs, but after like 10 years they never went back and revisited. They never said, you know what, let's correct that. Okay, you guys rebuilt. They just left the one-sided tariffs in place. So Trump is coming back and fixing some things that George Bush, Bill Clinton, Obama, even Reagan could have come back and addressed, and they didn't. Okay, so yeah, that's caused some consternation, people freaking out. Reopening negotiations like that suck. But then look at what he's doing, right? He's cutting massively government spending, and then he's talking about if tariff income is high enough, then cut taxes for like lower and middle class, which is like, okay, that's cool. So we'll see like how this goes. Like I can't think of a time really this has actually been done on such a big level in any country's history. So yeah, I think he's right. That's going to lead to a boom. And Wall Street made a fortune as they opened up global trade under Clinton and everything, and that these countries could then ship all the jobs to China and all the factories overseas. They could have the Nikes produced for, say, $2 or $5, and then they could take them back into the U.S. and sell them for $120. So they made a fortune, right? So their markup was incredible, and they made a fortune, but U.S. lost jobs tremendously, and a lot of those jobs were outsourced. So Nike, Wall Street made a fortune. Regular people who had their jobs lost their jobs, and so he's just, I don't know, making some things that do put America first over Wall Street. And of course, Wall Street isn't going to like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, I'm going to touch on another thing that you talked about, Randy, regarding the Bitcoin ETFs, right? Or the crypto ETFs. That, like, when I talk about liquidity, like that's another big thing. But there needs to be regulation around it before more and more organizations or financial institutions really feel comfortable investing in that and putting that in there. And what I mean by that is like, massive pension funds, retirement accounts, like all of those things. It's great that we have that, but we need the regulation around it so that it's not such a sketchy space. I mean, not just Bitcoin, but like, I mean, it's more around a lot of other things too. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, it's so ridiculous that this happens, but like there's a VC that I'm in, a project I invested in 3.5 years ago. And literally right before launch, they changed the vesting to hose me. And they're like, well, instead of getting this amount, this percent at launch, you're getting 0 for another year. That's like in violation of the contract that we signed. You know what I mean? But right now, like the regulations in place, there's a lack of regulations. What we need is like attorney generals, right? Like you need government attorneys to start targeting some of these firms and being like, nope, that's a breach of contract, and like we're gonna go after you, right? Because VCs are just like we're gonna be in court for how many years before, like, and it's not gonna be worth it, right? And all of these crypto projects, they know that, but if they set a precedent, right, where attorney generals start going after them, all of a sudden it cleans up the space, and that stuff needs to happen, because when that happens, then people do feel more comfortable doing pre-seed investments in projects because they know they're protected. But right now there's a lot. I see so many, like, it's kind of dried up. Like the VC space is kind of dried up with crypto in a lot of aspects, right? Because people are just like, I'm not going to throw money in there and have you hold my money for 3.5 years just to then screw me again, like right before things launch. Like, even though you've used my money for the last 3.5 years. Where I'm going with all of this is back to the ETFs. When there's more regulation, and listen, like, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of regulation, over-regulation. There needs to be some guardrails. There has to be. And especially if we want a lot of money, or for Bitcoin to become mainstream and to really take off, which would then pump everyone else's bags, because it does flow down from there into the other altcoins and things. Because there's a lot of other altcoins that truly, once they have that regulation in place, they can add a lot of utility and value in their projects and things. And so I think it's going to be a little bit longer term that way. But like, regulation is coming this year. I truly believe in the United States that there's going to be a lot more clarity where projects like Ecomi, I mean, like so many other ones that I'm in, I can be like, okay, we feel comfortable in this space now. We don't feel like we have to look over our shoulder every time, that we can operate here. You'll start seeing them market more. And I'm not just talking about Ecomi, I'm talking about projects in general, where they feel like, okay, we don't need the definition of a security. We can now use our funds to do this, and we're not painting a target on our back by doing that. And that's going to introduce more liquidity into the market. And again, like, liquidity is everything when it comes to the value or price action there. And so I'm extremely bullish in the midterm. I wouldn't say long term, but in the midterm, I think like the next few months, there's probably going to be some pain still. And then real quick, I know I've already been talking for a little bit, but with respect to the tariffs and how the U.S. is treated, like there was so much incentive for all of these companies to move outside. Number one, for the labor costs, right? But then because if they're in these other countries and they're paying less in tariffs to export it out of that country, they're going to make more money overall. And all of these companies, they're just businesses. And so my belief is that Trump is trying to make it a strong economy here and to make it fair. So when other companies, these international corporations, are exporting their goods, that they're on a level playing field with the rest of the world. And if you can do that, then America is going to experience a substantial economic boom.
So I do want to get to the businesses and the CCP later. But the first point I want to get to is, you said you're bullish on the midterm, which I am as well. You had the Senate Banking Chair, Scott, says that the major Bitcoin and crypto bills will be passed by August. Maybe from then on, we can get a little bit more of an injection of capital into the markets. Now, it might come sooner than that if we get interest rates lowered by the Fed. You'll have a bunch of like trillions of dollars on the side that'll rip into the markets. But it's been said that VeVe wanted to wait, and I think DEVVE's doing this as well for a couple of things. But Foster had posted the other day, the last 4 years have been a whirlwind journey filled with ups and downs and lessons learned, but I wouldn't change it. It's an honor to be part of such a passionate and dedicated community who believe in what is being built, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. He posted about his 4-year anniversary on VeVe. So it's been about half a decade now, and we kind of don't really have much more in the way of Ecomi as far as certain things that are going to happen. Do you believe that the wait is almost over and VeVe is waiting and Ecomi is waiting until after these bills are passed by the US? Or does it have to do with the lawsuit more? Why should we be buying down here when the great and powerful West says that markets keep going down, and the great and powerful West says OMI continues to defy logic? So why should we buy down here still?
Well, the number one principle for making money in any investment is buy low, sell high. But it's contrary to what people want to do. My wife was talking, and some of her friends that are business women were like, oh, no, crypto seems so interesting, but prices are really down. So I'm going to wait till it's doing better to buy some. And she's like, how does that make any sense? So you're waiting till prices are higher before you buy? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, my husband talks about this all the time. The way to make money in investments is buy low, sell high. So if you're waiting till prices are higher to buy, why are you waiting for prices to be higher to buy? You're at a riskier position buying higher. Now, sometimes people are thinking, well, it just keeps going down, and I want to wait till a time where it just keeps going up. Well, nothing just keeps going down for forever, and nothing just keeps going up for forever. So though buying down, it's not clear that the bottom of OMI is in. You don't know. And that's one of the challenge of dollar cost averaging at lows is sometimes you dollar cost average in and it goes lower. And then you dollar cost average in and it goes lower. I do like doing it that way rather than waiting till it starts to take off, because when it pops, sometimes it goes 7x, sometimes it goes 10x or 20x in a week. Then you're in a really bad position, because then you're like, I like that one, but it's gone 20x. I mean, now you're going to pay 20 times the price. You're in a 20 times more risky position buying at that point. So I'd rather just dollar cost average as things go cheaper and then they go better. Like, is it a perfect strategy? No, a perfect strategy is having a magic crystal ball to know exactly where the bottom's going to be. But I still haven't found where I can buy an actual magic crystal ball that works. So I have to take a subpar strategy, which generally works well, which is buying low. And then if it goes lower, buy even lower. And then if it goes lower, buy even lower. And then I use fundamental research on like, okay, is the company still alive? Are they working? What's the likelihood that they're going to survive until the coming bull market? What narrative are they in? What kind of strength do they have within the narrative that they're in? All these kind of research things that tell me whether I think it continues to be a great deal versus the other opportunities out there. And OMI, in my opinion, is still an amazing deal versus other opportunities. And especially because it got even cheaper this last week.
Do I think that OMI is going to be pushing something, or there's going to be movement there? I think that there's going to be some utility coming. Okay, let me back up. I'm trying to remember when it was, but it was last year, the first iteration of OMI to NFT, right? Where we could use OMI to purchase some things on Stackr. But there was a test period before that, right? Like I was part of that testing. We were transaction testing, just making sure things are working. We know, right? Like that's happening again. Why? Why are they testing Stackr again? Unless, right, they're really trying to make sure that there's no more bugs and there's going to be more things to be able to purchase on Stackr. And like, if I'm looking at how long that's been going on, like I would say that relatively soon, I don't know, like a couple weeks, a month tops, that we see OMI to NFT fully rolled out on Stackr, where we are now able to use OMI to purchase almost all, if not all things, on Stackr, which is building out that utility and making good on that promise, right? So I think that in the short term, there probably will be a pump in OMI if that happens, or when it happens. Like I believe it's going to happen at some point. I believe it's going to happen in the shorter term. But even if it doesn't, even if it's a longer term, like whenever that happens, there's going to be a pump in OMI because people want to buy it and get some of these things like that they've wanted, but they've just held it in OMI, and like there's a lot of people who have crypto and they just don't want to get in the credit card thing. Now, I want to answer Bobby Green's question. He says, do you think OMI on Stackr with a 2-click buy is better than having it on a major exchange like Binance or Coinbase? No, I don't. I think it's amazing. I think it's it is a big deal. But most people, if they just want to buy, because people who are buying OMI on Coinbase are probably just buying it for the price action, right? Like they're not going to be like, oh, and then I'm going to migrate it over. I'm going to buy it on Base and then I'm going to send it to my Stackr wallet. The people. So it like those two, they serve two different purposes. If I already know about Stackr and I already know about VeVe, like it is imperative to have a credit to be able to purchase OMI with a credit card on Stackr. That will be huge for the token in and of itself, regardless of any other listings. That will be massive for it. But then also, like if you get this listing, and here's the thing, I've been reading some things on X lately about like, oh, like are they going to miss the bull run? Because even if it does, it takes a lot of money. They got to give a lot of tokens, and I'm like, not true necessarily. If there's a lot of price action on a token, right, then these major exchanges will list it for free. They will rogue list it, right? They won't even reach out anymore. They'll just buy tokens from the market and get it on there because of the fees that they will gain because it's such a hot token. And that's where I think, Bobby, that being able to purchase OMI with a credit card will actually expedite that potential possibility of getting onto a Coinbase, especially if a narrative hits. Because then if the narrative hits, all the people who already know about VeVe, they're going to know about Stackr. They're going to be buying things with OMI because there's typically a discount between buying it with OMI and buying it on the app, right? And so that's why they will go and buy up that OMI. Then there's going to be a lot more price action there on Base, right? And you're already seeing Foster throwing out these things, right? To what's his name, Jesse.
Jesse.base.
Yeah, right. Like basically reaching out to the Base team or like commenting on some of their posts, right, with respect to like what projects are building on Base. So I think that having it on Coinbase for the masses would be a bigger deal just in general for the price action, if that's what we're talking about. And I'd say Coinbase over Binance, unless the regulation comes in and all of a sudden all these U.S. investors are now able to operate on Binance and Mexi and all these other ones that we can't do now because we're not accredited investors or something. If they can relax some of those requirements, then Binance could be just as good. But for U.S. people, definitely Coinbase would be a big deal. So those are my thoughts.
Agreed.
I'd say Coinbase, like you said, over Binance, at least for now, since U.S. people can't get in there. And like, for example, I was talking to some guys today, and they have pretty big money, and a couple of their friends have really big money, and they're like, "We want to talk to you about crypto." And it's like, cool, well, let's talk. So they're coming over tomorrow to talk about crypto, and of course they're going to ask me which ones are my favorites at current prices, and I would love to be able to tell them OMI. They don't know anything about crypto. They're not going to be able to buy OMI. If they could just buy OMI on Coinbase, I'd say I think the best value for what, if I were in your shoes, that I would be buying that would be simple and is on Coinbase would be OMI. Instead, I got to tell them Flow. Now, do I like Flow? I really like Flow. I really, really like OMI at these prices. It's just too hard. And I'm not going to take the time to walk them through that and then have them have the risk of having their own decentralized wallet that they may or may not get hacked because they don't know what they're doing. So, their options are what is easily available on Coinbase right now. So if they throw in $10,000, if they throw in $50,000, well, that's money that I'll be going to Flow or Flow and XRP over something like OMI, which I think would be amazing for them to be able to get in at these prices. But they can't. Why? It's not there. Now, Stackr is doing amazing things. I'm really continue to be pleased with Dr. Profit's a freaking genius. And what he's doing with Stackr and the integration with the app is so good. I'm excited for when people can just load it up because they will kind of treat it like gems and they'll be able to load up on OMI and then buy things on Stackr with it. I can see that all coming together. And what always blows me away is sometimes people want to see like way down the road what things are going to look like. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was doing real estate investment. There was this beautiful lake overview subdivision that overviewed this beautiful lake. And there were no properties like this at all. And they developed, this really smart developer developed all these lots, but there was no houses to look at. They just had the lots. So I grabbed a bunch of investors I worked with and I took them over there. And I was like, check this out. This is amazing. And like I bought one and like 2 or 3 other people bought one and most of them passed. And we were buying these lots for like $42,000 for like a 1.5 to 3 acre lot overlooking a lake. And it was an amazing price, but you couldn't see it coming together yet. Then the developer was building a house there, and as soon as the 2x4s and the structure, like the foundation of the house, was there and people could see it, the price of the lots went to $65,000 because a whole bunch sold like this, because now people could start to see it. And then once the house was finished, these lots were going for $120,000. So I sold, a bunch of my investors sold, and you know what? Once the house was finished, they kind of stopped appreciating at that price because that was about the price for what the land should go for lots. So those with vision to see what could come together and just be able to paint the picture in their mind of, okay, it's not there yet, which is why the price is so cheap. When all these things come together, that's when the price goes crazy. And I'm not going to wait to buy then. Why? Well, if you're an investor, why are you waiting to buy till after it's expensive? That doesn't make any sense. And that's yet what everyone wants to do. They want to wait till they can see the house, see what it looks like, and then they buy then. And then they say, crypto's a scam. Everyone else made all the money, and then I didn't make any money. It's like, yeah, because you didn't buy cheap. And rule number one of making money in any investment is buy low. Rule number two is sell high. And you bought high, praying it would go higher. And that's harder to work out. Like sometimes it still works out. Most of the time it doesn't for you. So like OMI has these things setting up. Are they on Coinbase? No, not yet. Is it on Stackr where you could do 1 or 2 click buys on Stackr by OMI? No, not yet. Those things are probably coming. Maybe there's not specific plans for Coinbase. Who knows? We know Stackr, they're working on it. But when the crypto market takes off, it'll be really easy for OMI to get on Coinbase. They have so much substance going on. I don't think it'll be a problem, especially with the US SEC terminating all their lawsuits they had against all these crypto companies, regulatory clarity coming in. They're in so much less of a risky space of being declared a security than they were just 9 months ago. So I think OMI can get listed easily. And the fact that it's not listed now, cool. OMI continues to be cheap. You know, I had some in my private community that are like, man, I wish OMI would get listed on Coinbase. And I was like, what would be the purpose of that? Well, yeah, but then it could get some traction. What would be the purpose of it getting some traction right now? If it went 3x from now, would you be selling? Well, no, I wouldn't be selling. So why do you want it to go 3x from now? If it's not high enough, you would sell, and it just took away the amazing buy opportunity. What good did it really do you? Really, it would just make them feel better that it was going the right direction. But that's an emotion, not a logical conclusion. The logical conclusion is stay as cheap as possible until it's ready to go absolutely crazy. That way you can dollar cost average. And then when it goes crazy, well, once it goes 3, 5, 10x from now, you'll be tempted to buy some more, but it's not near as good of a deal.
There was somebody that had mentioned that the other day. It was just someone that just needed to complain and just air out their transgressions. And I read them something that Tom Anderson had written from the DEVVE Telegram saying like, hey, I know people want X, Y, and Z, you know, now, today, or yesterday. But in this market, marketing really isn't going to be one of the best things you want. That is not a good allocation of funds. And he breaks it down like why it's not. And he's done press releases before and he's done these things, and it wouldn't be good in this type of market. And I told him, I was like, if OMI could be on Coinbase right now, if I press a button, I would not press it, because you can only list on there once. And if they listed on there now, it'd probably be a pump and dump. Like it would pump, like you said, probably 3x, 5x, whatever it was. The people have been buying over the past couple of several months, whatever, they'd probably sell, and then you miss it. And then if it were to be announced and listed in a much better market, say 6 to 9 months from now, they'd probably do a lot better, especially when the narrative is in. Speaking of which, there is a buddy of mine that never really had a bunch of, I think he had like 20 million OMI that he spent a lot on like X amount of years ago. Wasn't going to get any recently, thought he was going to have a big tax bill. Happy tax day, everybody. I freaking hate the IRS. He had found out that because of losses he sustained with other tokens, he actually does not owe any tax Now he is up to 354 million OMI. And this is something that I believe he represents a minority of people that are going to have that question pop up. What are we going to do with some of these funds that was going to go to taxes? My friend Perianne Boring had said the other day, while headlines focus on tariffs, the real story is the potential to abolish the income tax. If President Trump's strategy plans out, we have a once-in-generation opportunity to restore economic liberty in the U.S. The income tax is a direct assault on private property and individual sovereignty. It's time to shift our focus for the long term. Let's not get lost in the noise. Freedom is global. There have been multiple times Trump has even said that the income tax could be replaced by the tariffs that are going on. What do you guys think not only OMI, but crypto looks like in a no income tax world?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be huge, right? Because that's just more liquidity. And like with 2021, I think one of the reasons that had such a big run up is all of the COVID relief funds, right? People got refunds on their taxes, or they got checks in the mail, right? Like from the government. The government was just printing money. And a lot of that, like retail people bought crypto. They started to do that. And so I think that we'd see a similar thing there is people have more discretionary funds. And when they have that, a lot of it goes on to risk on assets. And so I think that just crypto in general, again, with clarification on regulation that opens up the markets even more. And so people can participate, whether they can buy things on Binance, right? Like there's potentially a lot more access to a lot more tokens. And you combine that with a stronger economy, no income tax, right? Or even just like the tariffs that basically make us a lot more competitive, like in the U.S. And like, I just think that, again, that's another way to introduce a lot more liquidity to the markets. But regulation, I know that people hate, man, I got so much crap over the last several years when I would talk about regulation. And one of the reasons why Comey probably hasn't been talking about their token, on top of the lawsuit, the more that I have seen, right, over the last, 6 months or something like that, like I didn't even think about the fact that there might have been a gag order to a certain extent on like what they could even talk about with the token. And my understanding is like we're supposed to hear any day, right, on the results of that lawsuit in New Zealand. Do you know anything on that, Randy? Like I haven't seen anything. Crypto Bro, who is, my assumption is that he was paid by Gadenzi. Like to me, there's almost no other explanation, right? Like, but anyways, like I haven't seen him post anything or to talk about it. But yeah, so I don't know if there's anything there. But anyways, the short answer is I think that no income tax would pump the crypto markets in combination with more clarity and regulation. And that would impact the ability of projects like Comey to talk more about that, which would also favorably impact them. Yeah.
What about you, Rain?
Well, I do think since there's been more regulatory clarity that VeVe has been talking about OMI more, right? But just a little bit. And a lot of people are like, are they distancing from it? Like we understood where the US SEC was at under Gary Gensler, and it was not a favorable place. And they were looking for any excuse to go after any crypto companies that had money, try to force them into a settlement agreement and just paying the SEC $80 million, $100 million, $20 million, whatever the number. And that's just like crazy. Current SEC seems to be working in more good faith and like trying to establish guidelines so crypto companies can have an idea when they're breaking law and when they're not, and what is security and what isn't. And so it's a more favorable environment, a lot more fair environment, less risky environment for them to talk about it. And we've seen them talk about it some. Do I wish they would talk about it more? Sure. I bet they will. And this lawsuit with Ben Gadenzi is just about, the outcome's just about out. So we'll see what actions they take and what they do. Has OMI kind of been the redheaded stepchild of like the VeVe, like as a company? It seemed like it, right? And a lot of people see that as a bad thing. But is it? I mean, I like buying cheap. So sometimes things swing too cheap, and sometimes there's reasons why they swing too cheap. Like I've looked at Las Vegas and it'd be fun to buy a condo there. And I know this guy that lives in this amazing tower in Vegas. And he's like, it's a really good deal here because there's a pending lawsuit. And so these condos aren't financeable. So you can buy this, $1.2 million condo for about $800,000. And eventually the lawsuit will be settled. They'll be financeable and then it will go up. And so I'm going to be like, no, I don't want to buy one because I don't like cheap. No, that's a great thing. If you're in a situation where you have cash and can buy something, fantastic. You can take advantage of the misalignment. Now, what caused the misalignment with VeVe hardly ever talking about OMI? Maybe, I don't know what kind of gag orders there might have been on the Gidenzi VeVe lawsuit related to OMI. I was very aware of the problems with the SEC and talking about it much, and they were smart to wait on it. So cool. OMI has become, in my opinion, way too cheap. Now, if people remember my coverage of VeVe back in 2021, I'm like, okay, the OMI prices run away, and I don't like chasing green candles. It's really, really high. Take a look at these VeVe collectibles, though. They haven't run yet. I mean, you could buy Todd McFarlane on the app still for 80 gems, and other things were coming out. When later the comics launched, I was like, man, these comics, I think digital comics are going to be a really big deal. And I was picking up a bunch of MC1s for like 3 gems and a bunch of Amazing Spider-Man's #1s for like 3 gems, the commons on the secondary market. And it was an amazing underpriced deal. And at that point, the VeVe collectibles were just getting trounced in prices. And people thought they were a dumb thing. And they still wanted to buy OMI because it was coming off of its highs and it had more recency bias. And I thought the collectibles were a better deal. Well, collectible prices have come down. OMI's prices come way, way down. And the reason why I spend a lot more of my own money buying OMI than VeVe collectibles is because the pendulum swung too far to the downside on OMI. It's just too cheap, in my opinion. And so as much as I believe the VeVe collectibles are massively underpriced, I think OMI's massively, massively underpriced. So I'm putting it there. Now, back to the question on like taxes and US and will it put more money into buying? Yes. And the simple truth about taxes are whenever you tax any type of behavior, you get less of it. So when you're taxing income, you're going to get less of it. So you're going to get less income. So people will not work as hard. So when you take the taxes off of income, and you take the taxes, if they take the taxes off of capital gains, you're going to see a lot more money flow into investments than would otherwise be there. And so it will bring more money into the space. So when they tax spending, like buying nice cars, essentially they are through the tariffs. If they're able to get rid of income taxes and stop taxing like people working and labor, and if they stop taxing like investments, you'll get way more work, you'll get way more investments. And then you get less Lamborghini buying and less, spending on like really expensive luxury goods, but people will have overall more money in their pockets. And that would be a good thing for investments, especially if they got rid of the capital gains tax. Do you realize how much money, if they did that in the US, would come from other countries, funneled through the US into investing in everything? Right now, the U.S. income tax is high compared to some of the other countries out there. So right now, some of the money finds ways to flee the United States to these other places. If they got rid of it or they took the capital gains tax down even lower, the money would flow into the U.S. like crazy into vehicles, and more of that would stay in the U.S. It'd be smart economic policy. We'll see how it goes.
There's a ton of potential economic policy that could be really good. Trump administration says that the U.S. might buy Bitcoin using the tariff revenue. There's some piece of legislation, I think, by Senator Loomis saying like, hey, we could just sell some gold for Bitcoin. There's potentially a lot of different things that they could go to do that. If they did, is there any way that I saw a post before about, it was on Facebook, this one guy, I think in 2000, the video was about 2011, where he said he was mining about 1 Bitcoin per day. And in the comments, and so granted, this is 14 years ago, but the comments were from today. They're just like, I still don't get it. and be like, it's fake money. It's like, if you really want to, you know, like invest in something, like buy gold. And I'm just like, oh my God, retail is nowhere close to being in. So if you have the US government, like you just had a company of Japan just buy it, you'd have all these other countries just buying it. Bukele just came. He's one of the biggest supporters of Bitcoin, president of El Salvador. They're doing really great, by the way. Is this going to be, are we going to have this blow off top if the governments are buying the Bitcoin and you have retail that's not really going to get in these gains? And if there's none of these gains for retail, do we have the blow off top in alts because most of the money is going to be held by institutions?
Well, as governments start buying Bitcoin, retail is going to buy Bitcoin too. And right now, a lot of retail can only afford a fraction of Bitcoin anyway. And so they'll just buy less of a fraction. And so unfortunately, retail really, really is impacted by FOMO, right? When you go to get your haircut, and if everyone there is talking about buying crypto, you have missed it. It is not time to buy crypto. It's time to sell and exit. So like El Salvador, amazing decisions there. Bukele. I remember 25 years ago, I was working with immigrants from Latin countries to Montreal, Canada, that all spoke Spanish. So all these Spanish-speaking countries from Central and South America. And El Salvador was like the highest crime rate in the world at that time. And everyone was like, don't go to El Salvador. We left that because the crime is so bad. Everything's so bad. And him taking it to one of the safest countries in the world like that, man, is freaking amazing. Amazing. What a change for a country. I thought El Salvador would continue to be a shithole for forever. And to have it transform into, like, I'm looking at El Salvador, I'm like, that looks pretty appealing. Like, we'll see as it gets more economic development, but maybe I'll get a permanent residence in El Salvador. I mean, how cool is that? So, like what he's doing there. Wes says something, no income tax is a pipe dream. I hope you're not right, but like, does it feel like you're right on that? It feels like you're right on that. Like, it's kind of like once you give the government a liberty, you're never getting it back. And they always sell it to you when they sold income tax. We're like, we need this to fund World War I. This is how the U.S. sold it to its people. And it's only 3% anyway. It's nothing. And once they got the camel's nose under the tent, then later under Woodrow Wilson and stuff, they just drove that camel all the way in. They took upper income tax if you made over a certain amount to like 90%, like something ridiculously crazy. Once you let the camel's nose under the tent. And so is it impossible to ever get it back? Like, it is almost impossible to ever get the government to give up income tax once you've given it to them. So we'll see. Like, can Trump do it? I don't know. It would seem like a miracle.
Yeah, I mean, the likelihood is pretty small. Like, I completely agree with Rain. I mean, listen, these people, we're seeing some of where these funds are going, right? They just take our money and they mismanage it all the time. Like, Elon said this thing. I mean, I think we all hate income tax, but it's funny that we just talk about income tax. We pay tax with everything. There's income tax. Like, so there's tax when you earn money. There's tax when you spend money, right? With like a sales tax that you got to pay, or that businesses have to pay. Like, they tax, like there's a tax when you transfer wealth, right? Like to your kids, or like they freaking have their hand in like all of our cookie jars, right? Like it's insane how much they take from us. And then where the heck does this even freaking go? And so, and these people in power, they know that, right? And then like, it's so corrupt. The whole political system is so corrupt. Like they're funneling money back to themselves. I'm sorry, but anyone whose net worth is like in the tens of millions of dollars and they're living on a salary of like $220,000, there's corruption there in some way, shape, or form. And whether it's spending your money and then they're getting kickback somehow, or through insider trading because they pass laws that somehow magically Congress doesn't have to abide by all of the other laws that we have to, right? When it comes to sort of insider trading. Like it's insane. So is it going to happen? Probably not. But could they lower it substantially? Potentially, right? If Trump can really show that, hey, these tariffs, we're making enough money now that like we don't need this income tax, that might be the support. But he's going to need some substantial support, because what he needs is to have such substantial support that the American people are like,
Demand
if you don't give us our money back, you're out, right? Because then the gravy train stops for those people. They need to continue in power to get the money that they're getting. And so sometimes they'll be like, the incentive is high enough that they're like, we're going to have to pass this like lower income like tax, right? Because if we don't, anyone who doesn't, we're not going to be on the gravy train anymore. We can't be corrupt anymore. And we want to keep that corruption going. I mean, that's my take on it. Yeah.
Preach. So there's a OMG. I haven't looked into it, but I don't think she's a liar. This girl OMGina says the first ever NFT ETF has been filed by Pudgy Penguins. I don't know if that gets approved. I don't know if this is one of those things where it's going to cascade and suddenly snowball. Suddenly everyone's going to do it. I do think that happens eventually. If these things do come to pass, and they do come to pass this year, I mean, I can't imagine that Darth Vader and Superman like don't become part of these ETFs. Doug, I feel like you're looking it up. Let me know your findings on what your L5s see like last. It's a Lord of the Rings reference for anyone who cares.
Yeah, no, I'm looking. So it looks like on March 21st, Canary Capital, they filed an S1 form with the SEC to launch a new ETF that aims to invest in the Pengu meme coin, which is tied to Pudgy Penguins, and Pudgy Penguins non-fungible tokens. I'm going to be realistic here. There's no way in hell that gets approved this year.
What would be their grounds of denying it?
So the thing with Bitcoin and why the SEC had such a hard time when they were fighting for the Bitcoin ETF is they had already approved a Bitcoin futures ETF, right? And so they were trying to argue with the futures that there could be market manipulation and things. And the judge basically came back and said, listen, you already have a Bitcoin, like the underlying asset from this Bitcoin futures is Bitcoin. So why did you approve a Bitcoin ETF, futures ETF, if like the underlying asset that you guys are so worried about is manipulated by the market? Like you can't like speak out of both sides of your mouth. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot. That's funny. You kind of shot yourself in the foot by doing that, right? And then like ETH, I believe if I'm not mistaken, ETH also had a futures, right? And so they were kind of like we've got to do this. Now, I think that with time, you can see some other very viable tokens, like maybe an XRP or something like that will do this. But listen, we're not going to get all these crazy like meme coins like as an ETF. Like you got to think that an ETF, like traditional finance, still holds like securities is pretty sacred, right? And like this almost makes it kind of like not serious at that point. I'm sorry, but like a penguin NFT and like the meme coin attached to it as
they're collectibles now.
But to look at that and say, okay, I want that in my 401k. It's not happening. Not this year. Like, I don't know if ever, to be honest, but like, especially not this year. So they can go ahead and do that. And maybe they're doing that kind of just like to draw some attention and stuff, but it's a waste of money at this point in time. Like, honestly, like I would bet everything I have. There's no way that gets approved this year.
Okay. Copy that. Ben Rose is here. And speaking of one of our CEOs of VeVe, it was screenshot the other day that people tend to look at what he's posting over on Instagram, over on X, and who he's following. He's following Pokemon, pretty new, and he's also following Roblox, and that's also pretty new. And David mentioned, I'm pretty sure this was public. He had mentioned just like one of the licenses that he had inked a deal with. It was complete. They had said, "Oh, you should follow me on X," and he said, "You probably don't want me to do that. My fans will speculate about everything, and this way, people would kind of assume and find out that they'd had a partnership before it was announced, and it would kind of take away from that." The only one prior to this that I had seen really was Elon Musk and SpaceX, but like everyone follows them, so I never really read too much into that. And he had followed them before he had made that announcement. or that statement or declaration, and post that, now you have Roblox and you have Pokemon. Am I reaching here? Is this something that I'm connecting dots that aren't there? And like Chavez, he's just a fan. I don't know when they would have time to play Roblox, but or can it mean something else?
I don't know. If I were to put odds on it, I'd say 2/3 chance that yes, Roblox and Pokemon. Like, he has a long-term connection with Pokemon. I don't want to overread into that because like he launched his store and got the license in New Zealand. Like, him and Pokemon have this epic history. So do I hope VeVe has Pokemon? Yes. Do I want to speculate on Pokemon? I just want to patiently wait to see whether it happens or doesn't. Roblox, cool. Especially, I'd be interested to see what form that could take, right? So what's crazy is Roblox, and what's the other game that's like it? Minecraft, like revolutionized video games. Even still today, like millions of youth are just playing that endlessly, right? Like Legos probably hates them because like the kids that would otherwise be playing with Legos don't have to pay $60 to $100 for a big set, and they can create these massive things within the environment for free, you know, and then they can buy skins or other things if they want. But it revolutionized video games and creative design, which is fun. And one of the things I'm excited about, the VeVe versus creative design. I don't know, does Roblox enter into that? That'd be fun. Maybe you could build some Roblox style houses. That'd be cool. Or maybe it's just some character licenses for now, and we'll see how it evolves. A lot of it, it's really hard to see what metaverses are going to look like 4 years down the road, 8 years down the road. I think they'll be a big deal. In what shape or form do they take place? I'm sure it's going to be exactly like Ready Player One, 15 years from now.
What about you, Doc? What are you thinking?
I mean, it is interesting that he finally started following him, right? Like why now? Like, that's weird, right? Because he has had a relationship with him for a long time. Like, why wasn't that one of the first, like, you know, the companies that he followed before people even started tracking or realizing that, hey, who he's following is kind of who he's partnering with and things. So like, I like the speculation, but I'm with Rain, right? Like, if it happens, it happens. They got the strongest, you know, argument to be the ones who partner with him. If Pokemon doesn't want to go it alone, and I think that, listen, you got smart people and they're looking at this space and they're saying, okay, Nike partnered with Artifact, right, to do this. Nike has how many billions of dollars that they can just spend in marketing and all this, and like they closed it down, right? Like, that didn't work. Nike didn't do that. So do we want to try to do it ourselves, or is it easier to try to partner with someone who's been successful in this space, right? So if they partner with someone, VeVe's the strongest argument for that. Like, they're not going to partner with Cryptoys. I like Cryptoys, like, nothing against Cryptoys, but like, who are you going to partner with, right? Like, you're going to partner with the people that even still, like, in this market, like on the second drop of Blackpink, like, no, it hasn't sold out yet, but like they still did pretty good sales, right? Compared to like, and the NFT market in general is still pretty down, and they're doing that. So yeah, I think that if someone's going to get Pokemon, it would be VeVe if Pokemon decides to partner with it. And same with Roblox, right? So I think that the Roblox thing is probably a stronger argument of like, yeah, that could be one of the ones. But it is interesting that he's followed Pokemon recently as opposed to years ago that he could have done it.
Yeah, so from his Vagabond games in New Zealand, they post all the time, from like Warhammer to Yu-Gi-Oh! But he only shares the Pokemon stuff that they post. And I was like, it's interesting. Now, maybe it's just because that's the biggest draw. Like, there are obviously more fans of Pokemon than there are of Warhammer or Yu-Gi-Oh! But, you know, anyway, when you had mentioned, fudge, something just, I had an idea. It slipped from me. It's gone. Oh, well.
It's gone.
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned Blackpink, and I don't know if Ben's still here or not. I had gone over yesterday. I'd gone over the past couple of days. I was crashing out the other day, and I'm sorry for that, guys. It was a pink moon, and it just got the better of me. Yeah, so it was like a pink moon. I guess I don't know if that's like it was pink. Yeah, the color was actually pink. It
right,
wasn't like
why
a blue
does
moon
that equate to you crashing out?
Yeah, I don't know, just because moon and water.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just using it as an excuse. Anyway, I think yesterday I calmly mentioned, it was about 24 hours ago. I was like, hey guys, here's the second day of Blackpink. Here are the numbers. And without doing any type of phygital, as of 24 hours ago, they had grossed about 50,000 in the primary markets. That's not including secondary. And in 24 hours since then, they probably did, several more thousands of dollars. But on 2 days ago, I had mentioned like, okay, the first day admittedly was not great. It got better obviously over the last few days. I said like what they could have done is they could have, even if Blackpink had said, no, we don't want to do this, where they had signed, because when they signed them 2 years ago, they weren't thinking really about phygitals, or if they were, they didn't think the market would be in such a dire situation where phygitals would be like the main thing that throws everything over. So even if it was something that they didn't want to ask, post signing, what they could have done, and I recognize in my armchair position that it's easy for me to be loose with other people's money and say like, well, you could have spent about $2,500 to get these signed posters where all the girls had signed them from eBay, and then offered that as the first 10 people to complete the set from the store are able to get this. And I feel like that would have translated into a bit more sales, because phygitals have been incredible. I mean, granted, these were 4 different characters and they were going across 2 days, but you still have those running mon ones that had, again, a certain phygital aspect of it. Everything phygital has done amazing. And would that have boosted sales an extra 20%, or you get an extra 10 to 12K from it? Does it boost an extra 5% where it barely just covers the cost of that? I don't know, but I do know that there were 2 different people that had, as of yesterday, equated for like 10 is 5, that had equated for like 8% of the entire sale. This guy Ernest and this guy, he has a Captain Jack Sparrow as a thing. They had pulled about $4,500 worth of pulls to complete that set with the diamonds. And again, I will take that all day. We need 1 million more like those guys. But if they ever lose this interest, if they ever go in and say like, hey, we're going to join these guys and say we're kind of done here. What do you guys think of, I don't want to say going all in on phygitals, but what do you guys think of VeVe potentially going into the tertiary market over there from like an eBay or from a Etsy and buying already signed merch from the artists or from the licensors and then using that as part of the giveaway?
It's a fun idea to continue excitement while things are down. They won't need to at all when things go crazy, or it'll just be added bonus, right? But like, is that how they did those stamps? Because how in the world did they get those stamps that they mailed out? They would have had to buy them on the secondary market. And so there's already some, like, how else did they get those stamps that were made forever ago to mail out to the people who got the secret rare? Probably buying it on the marketplace, right? So they've kind of done that. And we saw it with the penny black stamps, like they did tremendously well. So we already know how that would have gone. I think it would have up sales by 50%, if not, probably would have sold out the Blackpink. Why? That would be cool. Like, that would get my attention. Like, I'd be like, maybe, even though I right now I'm putting more money in OMI, like certain things like that, like you could call them gimmicks or whatever, like they do get my attention because there's that total nerd part of me that loves like winning, and something like that is pretty cool. So psychologically, it does attract people to put more money in than they would otherwise put in, because the reason why human beings gamble is there's this addiction to like payouts that, what do they call it? Inconsistent rewards. And so the law of inconsistent rewards. And so it gets people to spend more money than they would otherwise spend. And that's why blind boxes work, right? Because then people, they want to get that secret rare and then they try again. And in order to get the secret rare. So they're already implementing some of that. I would love to see at some point that with certain things that they do packs, Like, oh, there's a pack of cards, like Pokemon and packs of cards would be amazing. Or something where they have packs. So there's some random chances worked in. It's kind of a blind box format, but you have multiple collectibles per pack. And something like that where there's more physical rewards. We've already seen that do incredibly well. Now, logistically, that gets complicated for the setup. I think it's really cool that they did it for the Phygital, for the Iron Man, and then they did it for the Penny Black stamps, which did really well. I imagine the logistics behind that was a pain in the butt. But they did it. They've done it before. They could do it again.
Doc, you're on mute.
If Ben is still here and watching, or any of the VeVe team, I'm still very interested in that Stan Lee stuff, because we were told that the people who actually bought the physical items would get access to like another drop of art, you know, some of the artwork and things. And I haven't seen that materialize. I'm very interested to see where that's at. But listen, like I've talked about, you know, and I've shown off my Funkos and things like Fidgetals is a big deal. Now, here's something to consider though, right? Because if it's not in the contract, it's probably something that they would want to go and at least run it by the project and say, hey, you know, like, are we okay to do this, right? Because you don't want to step on companies' toes. Like, and maybe there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe they could do that even legally. But like, even still, it might be like, hey, we're going to do it this way, but like, you know, let's renegotiate going forward and get some more phygital stuff. But in the meantime, we think that this will actually sell out more. With the Penny Black stamp, like, I actually think that they probably had that in the contract where they were going to get some fidgetals and might have gotten it from that company, that stamp company, right? Where they just got it from that company to do that. So, but I think that was actually part of the negotiations and that contract.
That would make sense that maybe they provided it because they were going to do this drop with it, so it would make the maker a lot of money. Yeah, okay, yeah. That makes sense. Digital is not a big deal, right? So purchase this leather jacket. Why? Because I got a digital collectible that was worth the price. Essentially, I got a leather jacket for free. So I was like, at the VeVe booth, I was like, how can I pass this up? I get a really cool Stan Lee collectible that's awesome, and an awesome leather jacket that has VeVe on the sleeve. I'm in. Dang VeVe merch, it like just pulls at you. It's like, damn, I love this company. Okay.
I'm still pissed. I've always wanted a leather jacket. Freaking VeVe Magic, like with her when I was like, hey, like how do I look at this jacket? And she's like, Rain looks good. And I was like, well, that wasn't the question, so I know your answer. You know, geez, Magic.
To be fair, show those biceps now. They do look different than they did back then. Let's see them.
That is true. I've definitely lost some weight, and I probably look a lot better in a jacket now.
See those biceps.
We'll wait. We'll wait. I'll release the guns in the future.
Randy's got a gun show going on. Boy.
Do you want to know the unhinged stuff that VeVe Magic sends me? Okay, so in the and it's all like on Instagram. So no, I mean it's very dirty. Well, anyway, so in the middle of the video that she sent me is this nightmare fuel of this, I don't know what it is, holding a table, and as I had to like what is this? What is this voodoo stuff you're sending me? And then she just reacts at it, doesn't even bother to explain herself. I was like, that is gonna give me nightmares, and I've thought about this like more than once since she said. Anyway, I just had to poke fun. Bringing it back to OMI here, I've read from a couple of comments, at least on my shows, and you guys might have seen it in other places as well, where they're like, why did they give us a metaverse when that's last cycle? Gaming never goes out of cycle, which is 100% debatable, but why not games? Well, they have the Avant-Garde interactive game that we've been hearing about since 2022. They did make a post the other day saying, damage display, here's the newest update. You can now toggle damage display in the menu to see attack type to enemy relationships. Green is resistant, yellow is neutral, sparkling yellow is type weakness, big red is critical. And they do tag Gamer Maker Engine, and Gamer Maker Engine does have 100,000 followers over on X, so they seem to know what they're doing a little bit. It's going to be their time where they can put their, if you want a game, it seems like the game's coming out, I pray to God this year. Even if it's not, I don't think it'll be a play to earn or anything, but maybe it will be, I don't know. Will you guys play it? Even if it's not great? No? All right, Rain, you go first.
Especially if it's not great. Well, like, so some people will, right? Just because they're excited about it. Like, I played Axie Infinity 4 years ago because it was the first blockchain game and nobody was talking about it yet. And I was like an early player of it, which is cool. They later sent us some rewards. It equated to about $20,000 in value for being like an early player. It's like all of a sudden I got this notification that some AXS token was sent to my wallet. And I was like, oh. And I looked at the value and I was like, holy smokes, because I put about, I don't know, 30 hours into playing the game in the early days. That's crazy. But like it was painful to play. And I was trying to earn enough smooth love potion to breed some axes I had once. So I could really get a feel for the breeding mechanic and how well this breeding mechanic might do on the metrics of the game. And I got halfway through it and I just broke down, figured out how to use Uniswap back in the early days and bought Smooth Love Potion because I wanted to kill myself because the game was like so difficult. I'm a terrible beta tester for early games. I like playing ones that are like really fun and cool and not like going to crash on me and that have an amazing game loop, like Off the Grid I've been enjoying. So it's like VeVe's not a game maker. So for them to go out and try to create a game, like most game makers like fail at this anyway, even when it's in their industry. And so to expect like David and Dan are going to make a game that's like going to be top notch and kill everything and people are going to play it because the game's so good. I love playing games. I couldn't design one that everyone in the world would want to play or tons of people. So like, you know, David and Dan, probably not their specialty either. And so are we going to see a game? And maybe if a third party developer that's really amazing partners with them, is this game likely to be that? I'll be shocked if it is because most games fail. Most blockchain games, the reason why I invest in blockchain games, because they don't ultimately have to survive for you to make money. They just have to survive until the coming bull market. And then blockchain gaming narrative hits and they go crazy and then I sell. Ultimately, the game may or may not survive long term, but like my risk is less because we have this 4-year crypto cycle that they don't ultimately have to survive 10 years down the road to make money. They just have to survive until the coming bull run. So Mike, this game, who knows? I don't know much about the game. Would I probably play it only if it's really cool?
I'm not much of a game player. I used to be. I'm like a social gamer. So like every once in a while I'll still get on. I played Gears of War. I was pretty dang good at Halo 3. Like I was good at Halo. I had a younger brother though that just smoked me, man. And so I got really good at Halo 3. I don't know if I ever told this story, but I was like, I think I'm good enough to kind of compete, right? I beat all my friends and I go online and I feel like I beat the people I played most of the time. So then I went to this actual like they were holding a competition at some like computer or like, I don't know. I guess they had Xboxes there. But all these guys had freaking timer belts or something. I was like, what is that for? And they're like, oh yeah, like this just tells us when like you know the overshield and the invisibility like are gonna pop up. And I was like, what? Like, and like as soon as like they said that, I already was like, I am not prepared. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I knew like internally, like I had this internal clock where I was like, oh, it's gonna be up about now, and it was pretty close, right? But it wasn't exact, like because they would get this little buzz that was like, hey, it's coming in 5 seconds, right? So then they knew they had enough time to get across the map to these things, and that's just like one of the techniques that these people knew. And that's when I was like, I am. What is that?
It's a picture of a guy at a LAN party, and they had to duct tape him to the ceiling in order for him to play at this particular spot. So yeah, gamers tend to go pretty hard. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry
well, and I thought that I was pretty hardcore, right? And then I just realized I was like, oh, there's like not just like another level. There's several levels up from where I am, you know? And that's when I was kind of like, So I do it more for the social engagement. But Off the Grid has caught my eye. Like that's something that I'm going to be I'm gonna play that one, and it's more because it's still early, and I do think that it's the first AAA Web3 game, and to be able to play that and just get to know that, and some of the rewards that will come with it, like Axie Infinity and all the rewards that Rain was talking about, like there's the potential for that, but also it's the type of game that I already like to play. You know, like I can't remember what they call that avant-garde game. Was it like a slasher? What do they call that game?
Yeah, hack and slash.
Hack and slash, right? That's just not my style of game. But that doesn't mean it's not other people's. Like there's some people that's what they love. That's the game that they love. And VeVe's just dipping their toes into that, right? There's different forms of utility, and that's another one that they have there for the OMI token, which I think is awesome, right? So I like to see that, but what I'd really like to see is mini games in the VeVe-verse. Like you want to talk about success. Like if you can build those mini games in the VeVe-verse to a certain extent, and then you utilize the OMI token within the VeVe-verse like that with some of those games, man, that could be massive. That could be massive, not just for VeVe, but for OMI, the token.
Yeah, I would love that. Air Blues, what do you guys think about VeVe-verse being central to success? I agree 100%. If they could use the token in that way, in which you have to do it for something, even if it's not for mandatory stuff, even if it's just for optional stuff like merch or whatever, that type of thing would be pretty dope. Anyway, you mentioned gaming. I had like a few months ago, late last year, I got a new phone, and they were kind of pushing
cameras did that thing have? How many cameras did that have? That cameras?
Like 5, I guess. I don't know why. It takes really good pictures though.
Insane.
And they were like really pushing like you get like the 2-year protection, or you get the, all of these upgrades. And they had, I guess it was like a slow day for them there. They had the Nintendo Mini, the one that's like hacked, and you get like 350 games of the OG, like, and you get like Super Nintendo games as well. And I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you beat me and it was like Super Nintendo, like Mario Kart, I'll get these upgrades. But if I beat you, then I get like a free phone case or whatever. And they're like, all right, bet. So I take off my jacket, and then like they see like the Mario like tattoos, and the one guy goes, you got Mario tattoos. It was like the greatest reveal like ever. It was so cool. Anyway, so did you ever play Call of Duty Black Ops 2?
So I like Call of Duty after Halo, right? Call of Duty started to get on the rise. And so there's some friends that started playing that and stuff. And I'm like, all right, like I'm going to test this out. Like I got enough people that were like, hey, come play this. And I played one game. And basically I snuck up behind this guy and I went to swipe him in the back, right? And instead of doing that, I dropped a grenade and killed us both. And I was like, you know what? I already played Gears of War, which has a different button configuration than Halo. I can't do a third game with a completely different button configuration than the other 2 games that I play. Because I tried to switch it up to kind of make it the same. And at the time, they didn't. I think now I can switch it back, right, to where it's literally the same across all of those different games. But at the time when that came out, you couldn't, and I was just like, I am out, man. I was so mad because I'd been getting obliterated, and so I was so stoked to sneak up behind this guy, and I was like, ding, 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 boom. I was just like, that's it, I'm done. Just shut the game off, and I never played it again. Yeah.
That was a great game, but yeah, it wasn't always fun to get obliterated by like 12-year-olds, like, and I call them squeakers, right? Like, their voice hadn't like dropped yet, and you can tell they're like 12 years or younger, and they're just like play the game all day. And so, at that age, your reflexes are even quicker, and like they have all this time to think about it, and they just have more time than you do, and they just pummel you, like they just wipe you off the map, and it's like, oh great.
And the shit that they would talk to like at too, right? It was just like I'd be like, "Yo, you kiss your mom with that mouth, right?" And they just be like, "Oh, I kiss more than that." Like, oh, like they just go off, right? And I was like, I'm like, dude, what the heck are these 12-year-olds? And the other thing, Rain, that's so crazy about those young gamers is like, as you get older, like nerves start coming, right? Like you understand the gravity of like a big competition, right? Where they still haven't grasped that. So there's no nerves, right? Like comparatively. So they're just like smooth, where that's where a lot of people mess up because they're like, everything's on the line. I need this money, or I need to win this. And these 12-year-olds are like, I'm like, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like as they're playing this game, like, like they just don't care like we do, And so like that gives them another advantage because those nerves aren't there and their reflexes. It's wild. And that's when I was just like, bro, like I play socially with my buddies who are kind of like on the same like playing field as me. But then also like the other thing that just got so annoying, and I don't know if it's still the case now, but like all the botters, that would just like have auto aim and stuff. And I was like, what kind of a life is that? Like, what a loser. Like, I just was like, I can't, it's not even worth it to play online. So I love the LAN parties or just playing with buddies and stuff. But right now, that's not a thing in off the grid. But you better believe that like there starts to be real money on the line. Like people are going to try to hack that.
It's a thing. There's bot accounts and there's also auto aim. Like I was playing earlier today and this person's aim was just too good. And I play with my friends on the Xbox. And so right now, whether you're on the Xbox, the PlayStation, or a computer, you're all put in the same lobbies. So the people on the computer have an advantage because with a mouse, you can just aim and you can flip around much faster than you can with a controller. It just is what it is. So it's like it sucks going against people that are playing on a computer and some of the best in the world. And on a computer, like there is a device that they can use to essentially massively up the aim assist on the Xbox. We played against one guy that was really clear he was doing it, and it just headshots you continuously. And he was on an Xbox or PlayStation, but on the computer, it's even easier. They just download some kind of mouse assist thing, and it sucks, right? And like in competitions, like that's a problem. It's a problem on Call of Duty. It's a problem on every game, and they try to like ban that. But in competitions, they're able to because they provide the computer to them. So is that still going to be a thing? Yeah. I don't think people realize the kind of money that's going to bring in. Like when I was a kid, I used to think, oh man, when I grew up, I'd love to play video games professionally. Like that's actually a thing now. Like the top Dota 2 players in the world, like they started this Dota international competition like back in like 2012 or something. By 2015, 2016, the prize pool was like $5 million for a team of 5 for getting first place. So in that competition alone, these 12 to 20-year-olds were getting $1 million a piece. And I was like, holy cow. And then there were other competitions through the year. And if you got second place, you didn't get near as big of a prize pool, but you still got money all the way down for a number of levels. And it was incredible. And it's grown since then. I haven't paid attention to what it's gotten to now. But then you introduce blockchain gaming with actual ownership in there, and the potential for money is much, much higher. I don't think people realize right now that like off the grid is going to be one of the games like the whole world is talking about when crypto goes crazy, because this idea of ownership is so transformational that all the games that haven't converted to real ownership are going to get left behind. Because it's like, why would you play Call of Duty when you can buy these skins that you can never resell versus ones that you can play and you actually own it? And there's only 2,000 of them, and it's a huge social flex, and you can social flex them, and no one is going to get one of these again. Like the buddies I play with, we entered this competition for these Bored Ape collab masks, the gold version of them. There's only 200. So me and 2 buddies won in the Discord competition. And so, we'll each get one of these things. There are only 200. And what are those going to be worth? I don't know. $5,000, $10,000, maybe more. And people don't really get how big this is going to be. Like I remember in 2019 talking to my wife about, wow, this game Axie Infinity is bringing land ownership onto video games. And this idea of owning land in a video game, like you own the land, is so transformational, that this idea of blockchain gaming is so transformational. And nobody was talking about it. And then 2021, a fairly basic type of game that in my opinion was boring as hell became the 10th highest played game in the world because this idea of real asset ownership is huge. Fast forward to now, you have a AAA level game that's really fun, first person shooter, which is a style I like, because I'd consider Illuvium the first AAA level game. Off the Grid is first AAA level shooter, which is more the style of game that I like. And I think it's good enough that everyone in the world is going to be talking about it. And this idea of ownership is going to go huge. And then all these companies that haven't transitioned that kind of resisted that, are going to be like, oh my gosh. And they're going to be buying blockchain companies or partnering with them. Like the amount of mergers and acquisitions coming this next year is going to be huge, because all these companies are going to realize they're way behind. And so then you'll see companies spending billions of dollars to just try to catch up by acquiring blockchain game companies or blockchain companies or somebody with expertise to help them get in the space fast, because they'll be playing catch up.
Agreed 100%. Dota took over the world in like 05, and even in 06, you had Bass Hunter make a song about it. It's still played in like EDM clubs, probably at Coachella this weekend. The reason I brought up, so I guess we talk about microphones. Mario Kart in the new Nintendo update is going to have a microphone for the next Mario Kart on the Switch 2, and that is going to be wild. People are going to be cursing out kids. It's going to be incredible, and I can't wait. I'm going to show them youngins. The reason why I brought up Call of Duty 2 is because the campaign in that game was that the U.S. and China. So this was made in like 2011. It came out in 2012, and sometime in the future, the game takes place in 2025, even though it came out in 2012. And it was between a Cold War between the U.S. and China, and it was because China had chosen to stop giving the mineral rights or whatever, like, to the U.S. They even posted that Watcher Guru posted 2 days ago, China suspends exports of certain rare earth minerals to the U.S. And I had to quote it. I was like, bruh, isn't this the exact plot of Call of Duty Black Ops 2? And then I go to their actual post, and then there's multiple people posting about that, about how, hey, it's the character settings. Black Ops 2 throughout the year 2025, where China and the US are in a Cold War, where China stopped exporting rare earth. I just thought it was weird, thought it was interesting. A little too much of a coincidence for me. Anyway, I forget where I was going after that. Dr. Stuff, you tagged me in a Bezoj Man giveaway. I tagged his girlfriend's best friend, and she said that is not him. So the real Bezoj Man, unfortunately, does not have a X, or if he does, that is not it. So be advised, guys, if you see a Bezoj Man giveaway, people tagging each other, it is not.
Well, I'm glad that you have that connection, man. Yeah, thanks for doing that. Little weasels, because I checked the account and I was like, oh, it's a few years old. But yeah, that's enough. I'm about to sneeze here. Hold on.
Salud, senor.
Yeah, it's interesting in Spain, when you sneeze, like the first sneeze, they say salud, and then the second sneeze, they say dinero, and then the third sneeze, they say amor.
What does nero mean?
Dinero.
Dinero.
So health, money, love.
Oh, I thought you said just nero.
Three times to get them all.
Make it rain.
They say Monero. Yeah, like they knew about Monero all the way back then.
Yes.
So all right, so I guess OM. We haven't gone over that yet. Were you guys into OM, or did you take a look at Mantra and see go down that rabbit hole?
No, and it sucks to see that, right? And so I don't know really what the deal is with it, as far as it crashing tremendously, like hugely, going from $6 plus all the way down to like, at the bottom it hit 50 cents and is right now around 76 cents. So I'm not sure what the deal is, but Mantra is a security first real world asset layer 1 blockchain capable of adherence. Like, there's going to be so many of these real world asset blockchains that don't get major traction. Like, I've seen so many real estate companies are like, we're putting real estate on the blockchain. It's like, you're never going to get regulated to do that. Like, there's so much regulation in that for you to really put securities on, like, real estate on the blockchain. Like, you don't have the power. Like, Ripple is going to do that. XRP is going to do that. Major companies are going to do that, not something like this. Now, they do have a higher market cap. So even after it tanking, they're all the way down to a $739 million market cap. So maybe they have a big deal. But like, if I were betting on real world assets, my money would go to XRP. It's like XRP has massive connections around the world and could be Stellar Lumens and some of the like Hedera, some of these ISO coins that they work with. Would I have bet on Mantra? No. Do I like the narrative? Yes, of course it makes sense to put real estate, car titles, everything like that on the blockchain. Absolutely makes sense to put on the blockchain. But why are they going to choose Mantra over XRP or one of these bigger ISO coins that just are partnered with all the right, like you have to get so much traction and adoption to get chosen to put that on. Like, I think it's going to be XRP or Hedera or some of the bigger companies, not Mantra.
You know, so like it is already happening to a degree, but there's going to have to be changes in regulation for that to also happen. Because the way it's structured right now, I think in like Idaho, like this happened, or I mean somewhere in the States. I'll have to look it up real quick. But like basically the way they did this, right, is like you had a company, and the company purchased the real estate, and then the ownership of the company was fractionalized and tokenized, right? And then you could buy a portion of the company to get the cash flow from the real estate rental, like because it was a rental property, right? And that's how they had to do that. And that's still like a pain, right? Like there's a middleman there. They've got to set up that company. You can't just buy the real estate, right? Like you can't just have someone, you own the real estate and you want to fractionalize it and sell it, like, and you'll manage, like, there's a lot of steps there. There's a lot of regulation that needs to be clarified or like adjusted or improved before this really makes sense, where you're just putting real estate on the market and making it a lot more efficient, right? Because like those are a lot of steps, and then it's just like, but like people are trying different ways, and it's exciting to see that. But those are like one-off properties, right? Like, and if you're trying to think about like securitizations or like getting those what is it, real estate investment, what are they called, RINs, real estate, I just blanked out on that, like where you can through a security basically purchase like a fraction of like a large commercial building, real estate investment trust, a REIT, real estate investment trust. Whew, that's going back, man. I hadn't studied those or thought about even studying those in a long time, but yeah, so like I think it's going to happen, but like for the market cap to already be at that size was insane. And my understanding, Rain, or like Randy, if you guys know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read some things, and basically the reason it dropped is like there was this wallet that held like a large percentage of the token, and I believe that it was the team's wallet or something, or like it was tied to the team in some way.
The team had sent this wallet the funds.
Yeah. Okay, right. And then all of a sudden that wallet moves like a lot of the tokens over to a centralized exchange to basically start selling. And people are tracking that stuff, right? As soon as they saw that so whoever had all those tokens started to offload it, then it was just like a panic sell to the bottom, you know. And yeah, you hate to see it, but like so like this is the risk though. This is the risk in crypto. It's high risk, high reward, and like you got to do your research on that. You got to know who the team is. Are they trustworthy? Does what they're doing make sense? Does the market cap make sense for what they're doing, and where regulation is, like where the ability for this to even happen is? And you can make a lot of money off the speculation, right? So people just speculating like, oh, this is the thing. Well, maybe they're so early. I mean, that's how it was with OMI. Like I still believe in OMI, but we were obviously very early, right? On digital collectibles. 4 years ago when this all happened, we were early. And there was hype. There was hype around NFTs as they came, metaverse and stuff, but we're still early. But the thing is like this is the opportunity. I still believe that it's going to happen. And now prices are way down, right? And so for the people who want to take that risk, there's a lot higher reward now to get it now than there was when it was at 1.3 cents, right? So.
And one of the challenges with crypto, it's a strength and a weakness, but it is like people like, what do you own when you own a token? Do you realize how risky it is? Because like, number one, the team could have a huge amount that they could dump. Because there's such high risk, the rewards can be amazing. But like when you own a stock, you own a percentage of the company in essence. When you own a token, you don't own a percentage of the company. You own something that's even less tangible than a stock. Because of that, it swings wildly, like crazy wildly. The volatility is so high because the tangibility is even less than stock. I like the wild swings because it's the wild swings that create the massive potential for gains. But you are in a really risky position. And so like some of the stuff I've had, like one, the company that I invested in still continued to make money for 4 years. They released a token to help them raise funds. And then they put it on like an ERC something contract that you couldn't even trade on DEXs, and they didn't get it listed on exchanges anyone could use. So I held a token that they never really supported, and I couldn't even sell it. And then they took the money that they raised from all this stuff, and then they continued to like do business for like 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, you know, oh, that's great. So like you're at risk. So like I didn't know what had caused the massive decrease in that. I didn't know really if it's just the main wallet selling some and there's not further FUD beyond it, the price will recover. But I am really careful about these narratives. Like people are like, oh, real world assets, and they just throw money in there. It's like the regulatory involvement to get really substantial in real world asset inside in that, you need government approval to put like car titles on your blockchain. So it sounds like California, according to Big A, has AVAX on the blockchain. That's great. And you'll see more go along. Like states can make individual decisions like that. Like AVAX is a pretty inexpensive blockchain and probably a good one for that. You'll see further regulations, kind of some streamlining so things can work together. But blockchain is a good place for this. And they're in the early experimentation phase. But if I'm trying to bet on that stuff, I'm betting on like the major ISO coins like XRP, Hedera, some of these other ones that I think have enough clout that they'll get governments agreeing to put most of their stuff on them.
So to make it a little more silly here, but still bring it back to VeVe, I was doom scrolling on TikTok the other day, or it was yesterday, and there was a guy dressed up as Ultraman, and he was fighting Triceratops, I guess. And I just threw up a comment up there saying like, oh, I love my Ultraman collectible on VeVe official, and I tagged them. And then I don't know if you guys even have TikTok. I know it's not a thing that a lot of experienced, mature adults have, but I have it, and I follow VeVe on there. And like for the last couple of videos, I've been like the only one commenting on there. And I'll get back to more on TikTok in a minute, but is that something that VeVe should just like, guys, why are you even bothering posting on TikTok? Like that's where like the younger people are. That's not really our general audience. Or is it like, is it our fault? Be like, hey, the reason they have no comments on their videos and they're the only one, Randy, is because that it's the fault of the fans for not being uber fans and commenting on everything that they like. What do you guys think about VeVe on TikTok?
Well, I mean, TikTok is an amazing vehicle for getting younger audiences. So like, should VeVe be on TikTok? Well, I think VeVe should continue getting amazing licenses, because then when crypto goes crazy, then all the youth are going to come in wanting these licenses, and they'll come in chasing green candles. Then you'll have some younger people that'll be creating TikTok videos endlessly about VeVe content. So VeVe themselves, do they have to create a lot? They should have a presence on there because it does have wide distribution, right? But are they going to create the really super funny videos that are going to go massively viral? No, it'll probably be some 12-year-old in a year when crypto goes crazy, making videos of like Darth Vader going like this to like the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park and have a funny animation or something that happens, and that will go viral and get shared 2 million times. And they just created a situation where those kind of videos could be made. And so like I think VeVe goes massively viral on TikTok in the future because the augmented reality thing that they've created. But do they need to create it? No, they created something that allows people to be able to create fun videos. They'll get shared endlessly when everyone's talking about digital collectibles.
What about you, Doc?
I mean, yeah, I completely echo Rain's comments.
Copy that.
I don't have anything more to add on that.
So to bring it full circle, another thing I noticed is that so I think TikTok, I don't know if it's banned in China or if it's something that they just severely limit it for a lot of people, because I think in China there's rules like no social media more than like X amount of hours a day. I think they're actually going to go into like martial law again soon, but I digress. You have companies now, like I don't know if China just said like, hey, we're just lifting the ban for whatever reason, or it's China and the CCP going by themselves saying, hey, we own, because in order to do business with China, or on even like Disney, they own like 39% of Disney Shanghai. China owns 51%. I know the 10% is whoever else, like local municipalities, whatever. These Chinese businesses on TikTok are making these TikToks and they're going wild. They're all going viral. And it's saying like, hey, here's how you Americans can come get these things that directly from China. And even with the tariff, it's still cheaper than it was than before this trade war. And I think that's China's answer back to the US, saying like, okay, you can put tariffs all you want, but now if you get stuff directly from China, especially stuff like Louis Vuitton and Gucci, most of that stuff is made in China and they just ship it to Europe and then Europe puts like the name on it. Is this something to be worried about, or is this like China's like last resort that they can do, and it's not really going to have much of an effect?
So I think here's the thing. People buying directly from China, like the people who are going to buy those are not the people who are actually buying Louis Vuitton things, right? And the reason is the people who are buying the actual Louis Vuitton things, like they don't want to deal with that sketchiness, right? First and foremost. And then it's still not Louis Vuitton. It can look exactly like it, but if it doesn't have the actual Louis Vuitton on it and it's not from the company, it's not the same social flex. It's just not. And like the people who are going to spend that money are going to do that. Now, you might have a lot more people that like have the knockoffs, because like what China can't do is actually make the exact Louis Vuitton bag and put the Louis Vuitton stuff on it, right? Because then Louis Vuitton can basically stop that, and like it would, the US would shut down those websites, like they would not be allowed to purchase that, right? Because that's copyright infringement. Now China still does that anyways, right? Like they're constantly doing that, but like the US would make a bigger effort to not make that happen. So can people buy almost the exact same thing over there, right? And be like, oh, this is the exact same Louis Vuitton bag, but still it's a psychological thing, and people are gonna be like, but it's not. Like it is, but it isn't. And just that one thing changes the value of that Veblen good. Because now people are going to still say it's still a knockoff because it doesn't have the Louis Vuitton brand. Louis Vuitton didn't authorize it. And so it doesn't hold the same value. Like that's my take on it, right? As I look at those things, and like, I mean, it's like, okay, if there's going to be frugal people, for example, let me give a simpler example. I remember I was in Spain. I was like living in this little city called Ceuta. It's actually on the tip top of Africa, surrounded by Morocco. Fascinating. Spain owns 2 cities on Africa. There's a whole history behind it. But anyways, I was there and I bought these batteries. I was cheap at the time, right? And they had these batteries, and it was spelled Duracell with an S instead of a C, right? But they looked the exact same and everything. And I was just like, it's going to be the same thing, right? Like, yeah, like they just changed the letter on it, right? So that they're not doing this copyright. Those batteries lasted like 3 days, and it's like, it's not worth the risk for a lot of people. There will be some people who will do that. So these companies will lose some money, but the majority of the people and the money that they spend, they're not going to bother trying to just buy it directly from China. They're just going to go back to Louis Vuitton.
that's a hard sell too to somebody who's never traveled to China, because they're not exactly super friendly, right? Like the risk of like, well, I get detained because I have a weed pen on me or something, you know, like some weird thing that they then lock you up for the rest of your life. Also, they can save a couple $100 on a, you know, handbag. Somebody who is familiar with traveling back and forth to China, yeah, no big deal. Somebody who's never traveled there before, they're not going to fly out there to save $100 on a handbag. Like my wife loves purses. Would she consider doing that? That would get her attention. She'd be like, ooh, because, oh, I can get essentially Louis Vuitton that looks just like Louis Vuitton. Maybe it kind of actually is the same as the Louis Vuitton factory. You know, that would that get her attention? Oh, yeah, she loves purses. So, but like, is she going to travel to China for that? No. If it's an effort that they're trying, are they going to get much traction with it? I highly doubt it.
Because that's the other thing, right? Is all of these companies, like whether they're paying the factories in China, if they're like, listen, if you guys are just going to circumvent that and you're going to hurt our business, we'll just move the factories to Vietnam, right? And then you're done, right? Like, and then we'll change some things so that you don't have like the exact way to make it anymore, like whatever, right? Like these companies will adapt, and they've got a lot of money to do that. So you better believe that like this is a very short-term thing that China's hoping will kind of like push this right like in the favor, and Trump will be like, okay, like I'm done with it. But like long term, it is not sustainable.
Yeah, my understanding is the trade war is punishing China tremendously. They're trying to hide it, but it is like, you know, it's not winning Trump tons of support. China is hurting them much, much worse. And people don't like pain. Like in business and business acquisitions, when I went to business school, talked about how sometimes CEO will run the engine dry. So think of an engine of a car, and they'll like not change the oil. They'll not do all these maintenance repairs. And it's like, look, profits are so high because they're not actually spending money on things that will keep the company sustainable. And stock prices go up, and then they'll hand the company over to somebody responsible who's like, we need to change the oil. We need to do this. Oh my gosh, look at all these expenses going through the roof. And they have to then deal with the punishment from these prior executives who were pieces of shit. Well, that's kind of what Trump's going through, right? Is he going back and renegotiating all these deals? Yes. You know what? George Bush, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Obama, whatever that last guy's name was. They could have went back and fixed these things. Were they going to? No. Hell no. Because it make them look bad, even though it's better for the people that they're supposed to be representing. So Trump is doing that, and he's taking it on the chin. It doesn't make him look good. It's scary, and I think it's going to make him like actually quite a popular president way down the road for some of these people. Some of these people are going to hate him for the rest of their life. Until like 30 years down the road, they'll look, oh yeah, that was a really cool thing he did. 30 years from now, when the politics matters less, and like they realize that, you know, he didn't make everyone wear SS uniforms and salute a certain way and take over the world, you know, like their fears told them about.
I mean, let's be real. They're probably going to hate him anyway. But I've
well,
seen
Lincoln realized that like Lincoln was hated. He was the most controversial. The press hated Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln for 100 years. They're like, that guy was the worst ever. Now it's all accepted that he's one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history. Why? He did this very divisive thing that everyone hated at the time. Even the people that were anti-slavery is like, oh, I don't think he needed to do that. That was extreme. That was stupid. Oh, he almost lost the country over doing this thing called giving freedom to people that were denied it. Was he doing the right thing? Absolutely. Was it politically massively painful for him to do that? Yes. There were people that made a ton of money off of it. And guess what? They were super corrupt, and there was so much corruption embedded in the system, not just in the Democrat Party, but in the Whig Party. And he had to leave the Whig Party and create a whole new party called the Republican Party over this, because so many of the Whig politicians were part of the corruption too. And yeah, it almost destroyed America. But then ultimately, you know, really set the world forward and set humanity forward. And he was hated for 100 years by those states that, like, you know, were benefiting from slavery. But then way down the road, even those states are like, yeah, he was a great president 100 years later. So Will it take 100 years for some people to like Trump? Possibly. And we'll see how it does. Like, you know, it's just barely into us, but he's doing some hard things that I think are beneficial for the population that he's the president over. Even though some of that population hates him, and we'll see if it comes together and how it comes together. Some of this stuff like hasn't been done. If he can get rid of income tax, that's going to make a lot of people love him. If though he's got to get that passed, all the Democrat Party is going to be against that. I think you'll be surprised. A bunch of Republicans will be against that too, because that's where their power comes from. They love redirecting those funds into their special interest that then gets redirected to them. How do you think they're so rich? It's not just Nancy Pelosi that got rich. Mitch McConnell, a whole bunch of other people. It's like, oh, you make $200,000 a year. Wait, you're worth $70 million since you've been in Congress? How did that happen? Oh, my spouse is just a lucky trader. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
You know, along those lines, Rain, that you were talking about, like, could Bush or Obama or any of these other presidents done it? Yes, but like it would have made them wildly unpopular. The thing that the media doesn't realize is Trump has nothing to lose. They already hate him. Doesn't matter what he does, they're going to trash talk him. So he's like, I might as well do like what I believe is in the benefit of the people that I represent, right? Like there's nothing to lose anymore because it doesn't matter what I do. They're going to hate me. They're going to smear me anyways, you know? And so like, it's actually working in his favor where like, maybe if they were more favorable to him, he'd be like, like, you know, maybe I shouldn't pull some of this stuff because, you know, then they're going to talk bad. But he's like, no, like they're going to talk bad about me regardless. I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to show them, right? Like, and we talk about like the people who hate Trump. There's so many people who just like, listen, there's some people who just don't like him as a person. He is very brash, but I challenge those people to watch Bill Maher. Bill Maher did like a segment where he actually met Trump, right? And he's not a big Trump fan, right? And like
he's been one of the biggest anti-Trumpers.
I wouldn't say anti-Trumper. I think that he's pretty fair to Trump, but he does not like him.
Well,
he doesn't like
politics are left. I wouldn't say extreme left, but
he's centric. Like I would say that he. Okay, this is what I think has happened. Is
so extreme that Bill Maher looks like a rational person because he is rational. He is very much on the socialist side, but with reason. And so, yeah.
So jumping into that though, like I challenge people to watch his thing because what he said is the person that Trump is in front of the cameras is not the same person as he is off camera. And so he has this persona and it's intentional, right? Where he comes off as very brash and bullying, right? And mean because he's got to be on a world stage. He's got to be this negotiator, right? He's got to show and listen, like he's not messing around, right? Like he'll do some of that stuff. And that's the thing is like, there's enough question in people's minds as to, is he crazy enough to do something like that? And then the answer is like, he might just be, that it creates that fear that the countries aren't willing to push it because the risk to reward is so high. That risk is so high and the reward not big enough for that risk that they're not willing to push that. But he sat there and he's just like, man, like, and he's like, I gave it to Trump on some things, right? Like I totally called him out on some things. And Trump was like, yeah, like that's fair. Like completely different person. And Bill Maher was just like, I thought I was going to get kicked out of the White House. He's like, I kept waiting for that moment where he's like, all right, guys, take him out. You know, like I'm done. And like, he laughed at some of the jokes and he was just like, to me. And he's like, I don't understand like why he can't be like that. And I'm like, well, I just explained why I believe he can't do that. He can't be that person because he comes across as soft. And there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of bad people out there that will take advantage of that. Like I felt like they took advantage of Biden, right? Like, I mean, what was the country that wouldn't even take Biden's call? They didn't even take his call. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's wild, right? Like the president of the United States and they're like, nah, we're good. Like, we're not afraid of you is the message. We don't respect you is the message, right? And I'm not saying that he's perfect, but I believe that the things that they're trying to do in the long run will help the American people quite a bit. And it's going to be at the expense of a lot of these other countries that maybe we're able to get subsidies through, whether it was our military or through these tariffs and things that we're going to be on for Americans. Like it's a better playing field for us. So We'll see if that happens, though. It's
One
to
of
be
the things-
determined. It's to be determined.
One of the things I'm liking about him, when he ran that first time, I thought, baloney, he's going to get in office. He's not going to do any of these things. He's just going to go along to get along, and he's just going to continue and be kind of like a George Bush Jr., you know, and just kind of do that. So when he actually started doing these things, I was like, fascinating. And one of the things that makes me like him is who absolutely hates him. And that's an indicator that he's doing all the right things. That like the people who absolutely hate him are the ones that I think are most corrupt. And it's not just some Democrats, some Republicans like Mitch McConnell that absolutely hate him. That tells me everything I know. If Mitch McConnell hates him, he's probably doing the right thing for his constituents rather than the political class. Good job, Trump. Like I want it, you know, some people think Bernie Sanders is that change agent. Cool. I just don't see it. I don't think Bernie Sanders has that backbone to be willing to push forward to piss off those same people that Trump is. Because if you're actually doing the right thing for the American people, you got to realize that all those corrupt politicians, when you go to drain the swamp, man, all those alligators are going to come out of it and they're going to come after you. And Bernie Sanders didn't have the backbone for that. Mitt Romney didn't have the backbone for that. George W. Bush didn't have the backbone for it. Trump has. And all those alligators been coming out of the swamp after him. And that tells me he's on the right track. Like, and their ferocity is crazy. So good job, Trump. Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think you would do it. I did not believe in you.
Happy he is. I mean, as long as it works, which it seems like it is. I think you've had like 30 countries or whatever call in and be like, hey, we're ready. And the rest are surely on their way. Obviously, if it did not play out like this, I'd have been like, oh, this was a bad read, but again, it seems like it's working. You do have a bunch of these other people that were inside China, and I don't know where they are now. I don't know if China put them in a camp, but they had taken these videos, uploaded them to TikTok of the empty factories that are like, we're done. And, you know, we have no idea how to get food now. And so you see a lot of people on X complaining about their bags, like, Trump, come on, make a deal with China because my bags are suffering. You have the normal left that's on Facebook. They're like, see, we're vindicated. We told you Trump would be. I think Biden just had not a rally. He spoke today. He's like, I didn't think it'd get this bad this quickly. And then, you know, goes off for a second. So you have that, but it's when you have a country like China and the people that can, you know, miss a couple paychecks, they turn on a dime real quick of like, hey, we support our president, to just like, we're going to shove a stop sign up his butt because that's just what they want to do if they can't feed their families. People in the US, for the most part, yeah, some certain things are getting more expensive. Certain things might stay more expensive, like Nikes or whatever. But Trump can likely outlast them at least through the next year. But if that goes into the midterms next year, obviously China would win that. But it doesn't look like they'll last too much longer.
Communism doesn't have the economics behind it. It never has, right? And so they're not truly a full communist country. They're more a quasi-socialist fascist country. They just are in the government structure. And so they went to a free market. They were full communists under Mao, and they starved to death. And then they're like, this isn't working. So they went more the lines of like Nazism and fascism, where it was a socialist country as long as you did everything the government told you to do. So they like entered private enterprise as long as you do everything the CCP tells you to do. And that's not communism anymore, even though they consider themselves a communist government. They're more along the line of fascist socialist. And fascist is just socialism. They are the same. That, you know, fascists were specifically in Germany, were the National Socialist German Workers' Party. In other words, the Socialist Party of the German workers, or the labor unions, the German Party of the labor unions, Socialist German Party of the labor unions. So they're like the Socialist Party of China now. And it's, you know, private enterprise, and that's benefited them a lot more than straight up communism, but it still can't compete with a fair market. And when you have, like, I would say US was kind of heading towards a fascist type thing or a socialist type thing, where you were allowed to have a private business unless you were Elon Musk and you decide you're going to make Twitter full free speech. And then they used every branch of the government to audit him and go after him and try to put him out of business. That's not a free market. That is a socialist country or a fascist country. that's like, you know what, we don't like free speech, and so we're going to make up all these excuses to go after you. So the U.S. was heading that way. I think that's being set back, where it's like, once again, more free, more fair, and the economy is free and fair, and they just can't compete with that. So if they're going to try to do a trade war with the U.S. and they're going to try to outlast, they just can't. They don't have the economics for it. And countries are 72 hours away from a revolution at any given time. Have people go 72 hours with no food, no water. Yeah, your country's in massive trouble.
Bad times for them. And other news, we kind of skipped over this before. We're all talking. Tammy just buying her second VeVe logo. Heckin' love that. Congrats, Tammy. And VeVe Vet in 3 days should hit level 100. We have some incredible people out here.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Going for almost 2 hours. Should do final thoughts. How do we want to do it?
I'll go first, man.
Go ahead, Doc. And then
yeah. So, like, I just want to say this, right? It's been interesting. Like, I've been looking at some of the comments, even in Rain's Discord, right, where some people are just kind of losing hope on certain things. Like you know, and it's fascinating to me just to see the markets wear you down, right? Like, and that's why, like, as Rain says so many times, that there's only 5%. I feel like that's even a high number. You know, is it even 5% who really make it in these markets and stuff? Because, like, the mental fortitude that you have to have. And there's been days, there's been days where I was just like, I've gotten over it, but there was a time period where I was like, dude, what in the world, man? Like, put money in and it just goes down. It just goes down. And it's like, when is this going to reverse, right? And then Bitcoin starts going up and I'm like, oh, awesome. And then my tokens really didn't. Like, some of them kind of did, but like nothing like the euphoric, like, rise, you know, meteoric rise that, like, I was expecting and things. And I kind of just came to grips where I'm like, I mean, I'm still going to trust the plan, you know, like, and take the emotion out of it and saying, like, I still believe in that methodology of identifying projects with real use cases that are making money in the real world, that the real world would want to use. And I think digital collectibles is one of those things, you know, and I'm sticking to it. And, like, the team is still building. Like I said about Stackr, like, I think that at some point in time, we're going to get a full OMI to NFT where we will be able to use OMI to purchase all of the IP on VeVe. That would be that's a big step in that direction. And I think that they've been working towards that. So I love that the team is still working. We have the co-CEO on our channel here popping up almost every weekend, at least making a comment. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, they are intact with the community. I love that, right? These are the projects that really, I was clearing out. I was going through Telegram and I was looking at all of these projects that I'd invested in and their Telegram channels, you know, and, like, some of them, it's just like, just all of these bots that are there, like, you know, like they're not active on the channels. And yet you have the co-CEO coming on to, you know, YouTubers and commenting on their stuff while he's still busting his butt, like, to put out all this stuff. I love that. So for me, I'm still extremely bullish on VeVe and Economy. Like, I think that it's got a bright future. And I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the next 6 to 12 months. I'm looking forward to May, where David Yu says that there's, like, a big thing that's coming that has never been done before. We'll see that, right? And then we're seeing some of these conferences, this Lisbon conference and the San Diego Comic-Con and NFT NYC, not NFT NYC, sorry, New York Comic-Con. There's a lot coming. I'm looking forward to seeing the family. But, yeah, shout out to all you guys that are still here. It's tough. It's tough to be in the trenches, but I do believe that you're going to get rewarded for it.
Yeah. When I was new to crypto in 2017, I remember there was this guy that had a YouTube channel for about a year. And he was talking about how he had missed out massively on, he had bought Tron and he had held on to it for a year and Tron was doing nothing. And then he shows the exact point that he sold it, which was about 2 weeks before it took off. And he's like, oh man, you know, I sold it just so he had put like $6,000 into it. He sold it all for $2,000. And he had rolled it into something that had pumped, right? Because he wanted to be where the action was. And then 2 weeks after he sold it, Tron went crazy. And he's like, that would have been like $500,000. It's like, would have. Why? he wasn't the only person that did that. Most people do that. They do it over and over again because it's hard to just like have the patience to let it play out or not. And we all want to be where the action feels like it is, right? So, you know, some people are like, oh, these high risk altcoins, they're not worth it. I should have just put all my money in Bitcoin. It's like, you know, if you had a magic crystal ball, you would have seen that to date, except for some rare exceptions. Like one of my community members was in Caspa and made incredible money over the bear market. And then she took profits on it. And like, honestly, that was a better place to be than Bitcoin during the same time period. And you would have known that if you'd had a magic crystal ball to see the future. You also would have known that yet Bitcoin has massively outperformed to date a lot of the higher risk altcoins, which haven't pumped yet. In fact, many of them hitting all-time lows the past 3 weeks with the trade war threats. And you couldn't see that coming. So a lot of what I do is I just dollar cost average in projects that I think are fundamentally as sound as possible, that have high potential to survive until the coming bull market, that I think are massively underpriced, and sometimes they get more massively underpriced. And some people get discouraged during this and they wash out, and it's too bad, because I remember seeing that guy covering Tron. He's like, I sold this point, and I was thinking, who in the world would have done that? Why would he have sold? Like, duh, like Tron had so much traction back then. Why would he have washed out? Substantively, it was a good play back in 2017 versus the other things that were there. You know, he sold to roll into Bitcoin because Bitcoin had like tripled and his had been cut by 1/3. So he wanted to buy what was massively up so he could feel like he was in the right place. And it cost him a fortune to do that. And there's that temptation, right? And so a lot of people do that. I mean, it's crazy the numbers. 5% do incredible money in crypto. And I've seen how it happens and what you have to do in order to be part of that 5%. And what I've realized over time is some people just can't do it. They can't hold out. They can't be patient enough to let it play out. They just get washed out because the emotions of just sitting there and letting it play out. You're like, oh, I've taken my OMI positions and I'm either going to write it to zero or write it to the VeVe announcement that says we're shutting down all support for OMI, or to where it goes absolutely crazy. And some people can't do that. And that's okay. Like, this isn't for everyone, like on the investment side, which I'm passionate about. You know, what's fun about the collectibles, like the collectibles are collectible. Like, are they fun and cool to use in augmented reality or just look at and own? Yes. Might they have some speculative value to go massively up in the future? I think so too. I'm more on the OMI token. I have a lot of collectibles, but I continue to pick up more, especially the comics, because I think those are such a big deal. But I think the OMI token is massively underpriced, and I'm willing to take that bet because I don't think there's a day coming in the next year or two that's like, we're not going to support the OMI token. We're done with it completely. And I do think there's a day when the digital collectibles narrative absolutely goes bonkers. And I think that day's within the next year, probably in the next 3 to 9 months. And that OMI will go massively crazy. We created the show OMI is My Homie amidst peak FUD. And people are like, OMI, oh, it's so terrible. OMI's dead. OMI this. I think they're going to find out they're just wrong. And that OMI's going to do incredibly well. And all these people will look. They'll come in 6 months from now and say OMI's at 2 cents then. And they'll look to the left and be like, I can't believe OMI was so cheap. Who would have passed up buying at these prices? Well, you're seeing all kinds of people who right now are passing up on these prices. And I think they'll regret it. But we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, agreed. I bring it back to my guy that had asked me about OMI. He had like 20 million that he bought again years ago. Found out he had all this extra money that was not going to go to taxes, and he asked me about it, like honest opinion. I was like, well, you know, at gun to my head right now, and it was at like 0.00020 or 21, whatever. I was like, I think it does a 1 to 200x in the next 12 to 15 months or up to 15 months. And I said, but it also could get cut in half from here. At the time it was like a $58 million market cap, and I was like, you could put in however much you want to put in, and you could see a 50% haircut. And And he said, like, I hope I don't. I was like, hope you don't either. I was like, but in the long term, like I said, it's probably going to play out, like I said in the former. Obviously, take a look at it right now. It's in the 0001s. It's been here before. Recently, over the past the past week or two, it has been, and it's bounced up there. Some of those spikes might have actually been from him, and yeah, you could see a lot more short-term pain. Like, we are still in this trade war. Russia's still in the midst of invading Ukraine. You have a lot of uncertainty in the markets, or despite all of these massive pillars being built for the next foundation that is Bitcoin and crypto. Yeah, you have a lot of manipulation. You have a lot of short-term FUD, and this could go on for several more months. And even after it gets out of that, I don't know. Is it going to really be, NFTs are going to run first? It might, maybe. But some of the solutions to that, America has had a couple of things. One is the opportunity zones that are scattered throughout America. But one of the opportunity zones is right here in Ohio, where they're trying to attract foreign businesses. And these foreign businesses, the incentive to come in, if they're headquartered in an opportunity zone, is 10 years federally tax-free. And not only that, but at least in Ohio, you have this thing called Ohio Jobs. And Intel does this. They set up shop here to make a bunch of chips, whatever they're making. And some of these opportunity zones in these Ohio Jobs, they're saying, like, hey, thanks for headquartering here. We're going to go and give you grants each year for employees, and they recruit right out of Ohio State. And there's a buddy of mine that's going to come here in the next few months in order to help do that. So this trade war will come to an end at some point. It will likely resolve in the U.S.'s favor. I'm like 99% sure of that, unless something horrendous happens. And to build on what Doc said, in the meantime, VeVe has not stopped building. They are very, very deep into the collectibles and into the community. So much so that David messaged me the other day and he said, hey, take a look at this. And it was about Howard Russell. He's down there. He commented, although on YouTube he goes by a different name called Sketch Lab. And he says, hey, look at this another amazing thing that was built in the VeVeverse. So they watch everything you do. It used to be like, oh, they don't care about you unless you have a YouTube channel or unless you talk on spaces. I don't think I've ever seen SketchLab on a space. I don't think I've ever seen him on a podcast or on a YouTube channel, but they still know who he is now because of what he's building, because of the artistic stuff that he has. So there's more than one way to go Super Saiyan. There's more than one way to be able to get the team to observe your stuff. I think it was California, like David commented on one of California. David, I think purposely does not comment on anything that I post. But for California Comics, he made something really cool in the VeVeverse, and David had said, hey, can you make like a Pokemon like vending machine? And he did. And it's just, again, there's multiple ways to be able to go in and talk to these guys. And maybe some people don't know them. I do. At the very least, they're going to do what's right by the community. And if you don't believe that, it's like, oh yeah, they take the community's money. It's like, okay, if you think they're that selfish, what do you think they're going to do when they have 30 billion? Not Ben, but David and Dan that hold 30 billion each. Like, if you think they're that selfish, of course they're going to do something that's going to pump the token or make the token go nuts. So either whatever you believe, again, me knowing that they're just awesome, wholesome dudes, and I'm biased because they're friends and I love them, but I think they'll do right by the token holders that way. And even if you are super cynical and believe that they only exist to extract money from the community, well, then you're going to expect them to pump the token because so either way, token holders should win at some point. Just finishing off the last comments here. Love y'all. Did I touch on everything? We good? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we covered everything. Until next week.
Until next time. The mega diaper babies. That was a Dashi. That was a Rugrats reference. All right. Love y'all. Thank y'all.